All right, everybody. Thanks so much for stopping by another live episode of Real Estate Titans, sponsored by Lionbolt Media. I'm your host, Greg Fowler, traveling throughout the marketplace, interviewing the top real estate professionals in our field, essentially gathering insight, inspiration, really drives and motivates these top producers above and beyond everybody else in what I'd like to consider a real estate titan. Now, our very special guest and feature titan for today from the north, beautiful Canada, and I'm super excited about this, Geoff McLennan. Geoff, thanks so much for taking the time. It's an absolute honor to have you on for sure.
Yeah, thank you. Glad to be here.
And I just can't wait to dive into the series of questions, everybody to get to know you deeper as a man, as a professional, so many different takeaways and thought process from one of the best and brightest minds in the real estate world. So Geoff, if you're ready, let's just go for it.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. So let's just start with the first question, which ends up being telling everybody just a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, well, I've been a realtor since 2006, so 14 years now. I like to joke that I was trained since birth. My dad was selling real estate since before I was born. He's actually in the Greater Vancouver market. He has qualified the most times for Medallion. There are only 4 agents who have qualified more times than him. He's been doing it a very long time. And I used to joke for most of my life that real estate would be the last thing in the world I would ever do. But the best laid plans don't always work out.
Oh, that's awesome. And again, to having that background in, into the family feel, a part of your blood, I've heard that from time to time where it's when you've seen it and been around it at a young age, you're like, I'm not going to go there. But why real estate, Geoff? And what got you into it and what kind of your progression was to today?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'll start with why not?
Okay, yeah.
I think the biggest advantage that most children of realtors have, especially children of successful realtors, is they know what the job actually is before they ever get into it. The majority of people who get into real estate, they get into it because they want to make a ton of money and they want to set their own hours. Right. And I think the biggest advantage my dad taught me was that those two don't really go hand in hand. Real estate's a great career and you can make an absolute ton of money. But it's a service business. You are serving your clients, and that means that you don't just pick what days you work. You don't just you don't set your schedule to a big extent, especially at the beginning. Right. And that was what I saw and what I specifically did not want in my life. I ended up going into the film industry because I like to think of myself as a creative guy, and I thought that would be a pretty good outlet for that stuff. Wow. And I remember exactly the day I decided real estate was where I wanted to go. I was working in a motion capture studio. So that's where they put the little dots on the actors and athletes, and you film, essentially you get their skeletons to then send to the animators and they CG over it.
Love it.
And it had been just an absolute grueling week. And I was arriving at the studio at 6 a.m. and leaving well after 7 p.m. and it was winter. Wow. And I realized I hadn't seen daylight all week. And I was like, well, I always said I wouldn't go into real estate because I didn't want to work the hours. But I'm working the hours. I'm not my own boss. And I'm not really interacting with people. And I'm a pretty big people person. That was something that I really enjoy, and I think I'm good with people. So that was really the turning point. And also I met a girl who's now my wife, and I realized I had to actually pick up my career for better or worse.
Fair enough.
In order to be somebody that was worth her time.
Wow. And talking about the film industry, I mean, I'm a big film nerd and that sort of thing. So I absolutely love that. And, looking at it from the standpoint of following your passions, we all evolve as humans, and as people going through that process. And there's nothing wrong with moving forward and having different thought processes, as long as you kind of take the time to understand. And obviously you're talking about 14 years in the real estate business, Geoff. I mean, and then with a long lasting legacy through family. And so to me, when you're looking to make that adjustment with the thought process that you had, understanding how hard real estate is and the time you put into it, but comparing apples to apples, what you were going through, it makes sense in your decision making. I'm glad that you made that decision. And I know that your clients, friends, and family are as well, and the people that you service in your community, because you do it to the highest of standards. So what did it look like when you made that shift? and again, kind of going into where you are today, 14 years later, I suppose.
Yeah, at the start, real estate didn't come easy to me. At first, like I did okay. Like I think in my first year I sold 14 homes.
Okay.
And actually, I'm lying. My very first sale came stupid easy.
Okay.
My very first open house was my very first sale. I'd been
Wow.
in the business like 2 weeks,
Hmm.
and these people came and they just wouldn't leave.
Hmm.
Like they were there right at the start and they were there till closing. And I remember calling my dad and being like, "Hey, I don't know what to do. Like these people, they won't leave." And he was like, "Well, maybe you should sell them the home, dummy." And
Good advice. Good
I was
advice.
like, "Oh, okay, thanks, Dad." And sure
Love
enough,
it.
they bought the home. We double ended it,
Hmm.
and but then it took me a while to sort of figure out my groove and what I did, because
Hmm.
the things that one of the things I love about real estate, there's a million different ways to do this business,
Sure.
and there is no silver bullet. There's no, hey, this is the one way everybody should do it.
Hmm.
You can kind of be creative and you can do the things that work for you. And at the beginning, I really tried to do what Dad did. And
Hmm.
what Dad did was he built his business on a lot of leads by open houses. He started with buyers, and then eventually, as they converted, they turned into sellers, and
Yeah.
also a lot of newspaper ads.
Huh.
And so I kind of went down that road as well. And I did okay. Like if I really focused on it, I can generate a lead at an open house. I can make that work, but it wasn't enjoyable
Hmm.
for me. I didn't like generating leads that
Interesting.
way.
Yeah.
And eventually, the time when I started really enjoying real estate was when I started working some of the film stuff back
Hmm.
into business. Video is a big part of my business at this point.
Wow.
And it kind of, when we started incorporating video into the business, it sort of relit the fun
Hmm.
of real estate, and also it's been very productive.
Love that. And I want to dive deeper into that too. I believe in the third question, when we're talking about things that you can add and things that people can take away and really scale and grow their business and help on. I would love to pick your brain on the video side of that, especially because it is a
Sure.
big part with that. But again, Geoff, I mean, that's giving people a really good understanding of kind of where you've come from and what's going on into there. I want to dive a little deeper into your thought process, into the why question, which is the second
Hmm.
one here. I mean, at the end of the day, what gets you excited every day to do what you do to the level you do it at for all these years, Geoff? What's your why?
Yeah, I've got sort of two whys. I've got an inner why and an outer why.
Okay.
Uh, the outer why is I enjoy the process. I enjoy getting to know people, and I enjoy helping people.
Hmm.
If I had a goal with every client, it's to make the process as easy and as fun as possible for them, so that it
Hmm.
all just feels smooth, and really helping people kind of step foot onto their next adventure, which is their next home.
Wow.
Um, I absolutely love working with sort of people who are new to the process, and really teaching them, and essentially being a guide through the
Hmm.
process. I really enjoy that. On a more inner level, my wife has some major health concerns,
Oh,
and
gosh.
she has an immune disorder, and we've really researched. We basically run the course as far as we can go with getting research here in
Hmm.
Canada, and we've hit a wall.
Wow.
So we've had to start looking to the international community
Hmm.
to start getting answers, and we are making progress, and it's going well.
Okay,
Um,
good.
but it's a pretty big motivator, because it's
Hmm.
not cheap to start looking all over the world to try and
Oh,
get help.
gosh. Yeah.
So I mean, we've had a lot of success reaching out to Israel, and getting some of sort of the problem is there isn't a single specialist here in Canada that specializes in what Rachel has.
Wow.
So that's a pretty big motivator to get up and sort of work my butt off, because there's nothing physically I can do from the science side,
Hmm.
but at least I can provide financial stability and us help with the ability to pursue those other options.
Wow. I mean, Geoff, when you're talking about, real whys and motivators, I mean, everybody has their own versions of that, and it's very special to them. So we're not downplaying that. But when you're talking about, first and foremost, really servicing your clients to the highest levels and really making sure that you're leaving that impact and legacy in the community, that's one thing. But when you're talking about your spouse and really making sure that you're doing everything possible so that they're around, I mean, life is so precious, and those relationships are everything. Family is everything. So, again, to me, that just shows the heart that you have, and again, why you do what you do and why you do it so well is because those are huge driving forces. And I love the fact that you share that for sure. And I know the audience does as well. I do want to shift gears on the next question here. And this one ends up being the crowd pleaser, if you will, or what a lot of the viewers and subscribers tune into is they want to learn from the Titans. They want to understand how they've grown and scaled business. Now, you alluded to video being a big part of your business, earlier on, but I would love to dive deeper into, if you could look back at your career thus far and pick or choose one or two things you added to your business that took it from one level to the next. What's that look like for you, Geoff? What advice would you give to a seasoned pro who's tuning in, or somebody who's maybe just starting out?
Yeah, a big shift in my career only happened a few years ago. I was really resistant to geographic farming for a long time.
Okay.
I'd try it for a while, and I'd run it for a year, not really get a whole lot of traction out of it, give up on it, try it again maybe a couple years later, and just I really hit the wall with it. It never really seemed to click.
Wow.
The sort of secret ingredient for me was a couple years ago now. We started a Facebook group called Eat New West, which is just like a foodie group, just talking about and promoting the local restaurants in town, the local bars, the local, like the farmers market, and really just sort of promoting that. Now, I'm very protective of it. I never promote real estate within the group because I want the community to feel like this is something I'm doing to give to them, not something that I'm here to take. And I actually do it with another agent that we're not a team. We're just friends, and we're both foodies, and we like going and promoting these things.
Sure.
But the accidental sort of secret ingredient that I discovered was, while I never promote the group, or I never promote that I'm a realtor within the group, I started promoting the group on everything real estate going out.
Interesting.
And the success all of a sudden, it really changed. Like I mentioned earlier, I'm not a big fan of picking people up at open houses. I started creating a sheet at my open houses saying, Eat New West's most recommended restaurants, and then a little blurb about what Eat New West was. And it is such a conversation starter when somebody comes in and all of a sudden you've got this info, and all of a sudden I'm talking for half an hour with somebody, not about real estate, but about the community. And in New Westminster, most of our buyers are people who have been pushed out of Vancouver. We're a suburb of Vancouver.
Okay.
And so a lot of them don't know the community. They're sort of weighing us against the other suburbs. And it becomes a really good point, and almost accidentally it positions me as the expert as well. And when that started working, I started adding it. I just thought, why don't I try the farm thing one more time and just see, but have one side of the sheet be real estate and the other side be all Eat New West stuff. And in the first 6 months, I did 9 deals off of it. And I hadn't done a single deal off the last time I did a farm. And every one of those leads was so warm when I walked in, because I check every time I get a lead, they're a member of the Eat New West group. And it's been so successful. And just to sort of tie that up, the big secret ingredient with that, though, is it has to be videos. Like I've taught how to run a Facebook group. The last time I taught it was at a real estate conference in Toronto. There were 2,000 agents that I kind of taught this system of exactly how to do this.
Wow.
So many of them sent me messages being like, hey, I did the group. I did it. Can you check it out? The majority of them did every step of the formula except the video component.
Ouch.
And when I watch them, they're not getting traction off of it. Instead of having 3,000 members in the first couple of months, they're only at 200 or 300 members.
Hmm.
And the real secret with video as well is, when you do get that lead that has watched you on video, when you walk through the door, it's not cold. They
Right.
feel like they know you
Hmm.
before you ever sit down. And in fact, a lot of those appointments, we'll talk real estate for 10 minutes. They're like, yeah, we want to go with you. But then they'll want to sit and talk about their favorite restaurants for half an hour,
Sure.
because you've created this shared bond while you were sleeping. You didn't know they were watching your videos, but it's been really, really powerful stuff.
Wow, Geoff. I mean, that's absolutely brilliant from start to finish. When you're talking about it not being about real estate first and foremost, connecting with the communities in a valuable way that they're really going to dive deep into. Now, I love food myself, and I think that there's so many of us self-proclaimed foodies that really do enjoy trying new restaurants and testing out the different types of cuisines and experiencing life and culture through food and drink as well. And I think that there's a lot of really, really huge takeaways. And this is something that, as you were stating earlier, I'm assuming to the audience of thousands, this is something that you can do in your community, but there's certain components that have to be done. And unfortunately, there's so many mechanical, real estate professionals that will put the systems in place. But at the end of the day, you could have automations, you could have exposure, you could have even a really, really great idea and implementing as much action as possible. But if you're not creating healthy content that's nerve striking, content that matters, it's not going to work. And again, I love that you stated, hey, they did everything except for the video, but that video is crucial and the content is crucial, right? I mean,
yeah. Oh, the video is the secret sauce for sure. And I would also say, these little things that we like, I mean, probably the majority of the people listening to this are in sales. I'm not telling them anything they don't know. We feel like we bond when we have these shared interests, right? Like, you say
sure.
you're a film geek. I'm a big film geek. I immediately like you more
Yeah.
as soon as you say that. Like,
Sure.
it's just how we work as human beings. And I would say the other thing is, don't make a food group if you're not into food. Like,
Well said.
food isn't the important part of it. The important part is, it has to interact with other businesses in the community, because you're interacting with the people who see the videos, but you're also creating little advocates for your own business. Every time you go to somebody whose business might be struggling and you try to promote them without asking anything of them, human nature, a big chunk of them are going to try and return the favor. But like I have somebody who, he's a good friend of mine. And when this started working off for me, he was like, well, can I take this idea, but can I make it about, kids sports? And it's been fantastic for him. He goes and he talks to all the coaches for all the different things, and he makes sure that he gets all the information out. And he's also got like a buy and trade thing where people can get rid of their old equipment when their kid stops playing the sports.
Awesome.
This would not be successful for me because I'm not super into sports. I mean, I don't dislike sports at all, but I'm not passionate about it, right? Whatever if you decide to implement this, it has to be something that you're super into.
I love that. And it's true advice all the way through and through. And with any type of projection out there, just being as genuine as you possibly can as a human and connect in a real way. That's what it's all about. And I love these ideas and these thought processes. And anybody who's had the opportunity to get in front of you, Geoff, and hear the step-by-steps, I mean, I'm envious about that because I know there's so many professionals who would love to get it. So I'll definitely leave links in the comments down below for, if it's okay, is the group that you have, is it a private group or is it open to the public?
Yeah. So that's a good question. And unfortunately my answer isn't a great one.
Okay.
It is a private group.
No, that's cool.
Do not try to join Eat New West. So we've got 3,200 members in there right now.
Love it.
And I'm very protective of it because over 98% of the members of the group interact with it every single week. Wow. So, we're getting over 170 people posting in there every week. And I just really want to, I want the Facebook algorithm to see that everybody's interacting and really try and push it to everybody. That said, if anybody wants to, none of the stuff in the group will be of super interest. If you want inspiration on the videos,
Sure.
every single video I put up in Eat New West, I also put on, we have an Eat New West YouTube channel. So
Oh,
you can
love
see
that.
all the content I'm creating. You
Okay.
just can't join the group.
And that's awesome, Geoff. Just takeaways for the audience to kind of learn from some of the
Yeah,
best and
for
brightest.
sure.
So I'll have a link for your YouTube channel so that people can subscribe, and then stay in tune with what Geoff's doing. Obviously learn from one of the best, but then, take it and make your own versions of different things that you're passionate about. That's the whole point. So that's really, really great stuff, Geoff, and taking it away and implement for everybody out there. So this is fantastic. Now, I do want to shift gears on this one and move to the next question. This is the tricky part of the interview and the series. It's the challenge question, Geoff. So I lead into it with every Titan this way. We all have challenges in our lives, struggles, hardships, whether it's personally or professionally. No one's exempt. It's in the past, we're dealing with it now, or in the future. I'm a firm believer it's not so much what happens, but what we learn and how we can grow from it in a stronger, positive way, and what we can share out there. So if you're comfortable, Geoff, sharing a personal or professional challenge you've dealt with or are dealing with that can inspire and hopefully make people think a little bit differently about their lives, what's that look like for you?
Yeah. So my biggest challenge in my career probably came about a year into the business.
Okay.
I was working and I lost feeling in my hands. My fingertips went numb, and
Whoa.
it just didn't go away. And it had happened about 2 years prior, and it had
Okay.
been diagnosed as a pinched nerve, and I'd gone and got physio, and it just sort of fixed itself.
Okay.
So I went back, I got physio, but
Huh.
nothing was really changing. And my now wife, girlfriend at the time, was like, I
Mhm.
don't know, this doesn't really sound like a pinched nerve. And
Hmm.
her background is actually in sport, so
Oh,
she
cool.
knows way better than me.
Sure.
And so she made me go see a doctor.
Hmm.
And the doctor, 2 seconds in, was like, "What do you do?" And I'm like, "Oh, well, I'm in real estate." And he's like, "Oh, okay, well, it's stress." And I was like,
Wow.
"Things are going pretty well. I don't really feel too stressed out right now."
Hmm.
And he said, "Well, trust me, I'm a stress specialist. It's stress." And I thought to myself, maybe you think it's stress because you're a stress specialist, but also, you want things to just be easy answers. So I thought, okay. And I went home and I told Rach, like, "Hey, don't worry, it's just stress." And she looked at me like I was stupid
Wow.
and said, "You're not stressed. Get in the car. We're going to the hospital." And at the hospital, they totally freaked out. I was probably like 26 at the
Okay.
time, but they ended up rushing me into getting a CAT scan. And then the doctor came in, and he sat down with me, and he was pretty grave about things. And he said, we found a shadow over your brain,
Oh
and
man.
it could be brain cancer." And
Wow.
uh, my uncle had brain cancer. And so, everything he went through was going through my head, and it was pretty upsetting. And they took me, they admitted me into the hospital, and they ran a ton of tests. I had
Hmm.
MRIs. I had a spinal tap, which was one of the strangest experiences of my life. And
Wow.
about a week later of tests, they came back and said, the good news is you don't have brain cancer. The bad news is you have MS.
Ah,
And
wow,
my
Geoff.
response was, cool, what's MS?
Hmm.
And
Wow.
um, but it's funny that you kind of frame things as the biggest challenges in our life often become sort of the things that really push us,
Hmm.
because it did make me reframe the way I thought about my life. And it changed the way that I work.
Wow.
And when I go back to working video back into my business,
Hmm.
for years I was very closeted about the whole thing. I
Okay.
For whatever reason, I was very nervous about telling people that I had a neurodegenerative disease.
Hmm.
In fact, it really scared me. And then one year I just got really tired of it, and I made a quick video. I wasn't working video into my business at that point,
Hmm.
and I just said, I told the story that I just told you, and I talked about, at the time, MS drugs. The drug I was taking was an injection,
Okay.
And 3 times a week, I had to sort of inject myself. And I talked about how hard it was. Like, I never
Hmm.
really got my brain around sticking a needle into my thigh. And I just kind of told my story and what I was going through, and announced that I was going to do the MS walk this year,
Wow.
and I'd like support.
Hmm.
And I was, without making a single phone call, I was the #1 fundraiser for the MS walk that year.
Unreal.
And it kind of liberated me. I felt like if I could talk about that, I could talk about anything. All of a
Yeah.
sudden, these things weren't such a big deal. It made me feel like I was doing something positive, and it also really opened my mind up to the absolute power of, I could have spent all month on the phone calling people and
Hmm.
not raised as much money as one video and running a $50 ad on Facebook. Like
Wow.
it, so it changed the entire way I do business. And
Hmm.
the good news is, as far as people with MS goes, the
Yeah.
disease has been pretty mild for me. It's the sort of thing that if I didn't tell people about, they would never know.
Right.
I do have symptoms, but they're all invisible.
Hmm. Wow, Jeff. I mean, an absolutely, inspiring story and thought process for everybody to kind of live through and understand kind of the thought process that you're going through. And what a scary time frame is, initially being addressed as, oh, it's just stress, to going all the way to it being brain cancer potentially and MS, which again is not a great thing, but there are just so many things in our lives that happen and change us. And and I look at it and as we're not needing or wanting these things to happen, but you're a better, stronger man because of it. You've impacted communities and spoken about this, and obviously to our audience. And I know there's someone out there who's watching or listening to this right now who's been through exactly what you're talking about. And the common denominator is we're not alone. And that's a very warming, inspiring thing for everybody to hear. Is we all have struggle, we all have hardship, in some form or fashion. Some of them are invisible and some of them are very apparent. But
Hmm.
I think just all of us being a little bit more understanding of each other and realizing that, even when you have a really bad day and things just don't seem like they're going right, trust me, somebody has it worse. And we just need to appreciate who we are and where we are and what we have. And that's just a beautiful message all the way through and through. And what an insane story. It just and furthermore, no offense to doctors or anybody who's diagnosing, but there's just so many one size fits all answers.
Oh
And
yeah.
and that drives me nuts. It's meeting the right professional is crucially important to get the proper diagnosis and to really figure things out. And I equate that into any business profession. That's real estate included. I mean, not every doctor is equal and not every real estate professional is equal. And I think that there's a perfect example of that on that side. And anybody out there who's watching or listening to this agrees and understands that, the Titans are really setting that bar as far as real estate's concerned. And that's really, those are the go-tos, right? It's not the first or the second doctor. It's the last one who gets the right answer. So
Yeah.
but Jeff, thanks so much for sharing that. I know it's not easy to do, and I really appreciate you opening it up and letting everybody know, because it's not easy to air your stuff out in front of everybody. I know it. I know it. So, but I really do appreciate your mindset and moving forward with that too, and being an inspiration. So I want to shift gears into a slightly softer question because we got through the hard stuff. We got through
Sure.
the soft
Yeah.
stuff. But this is actually one of my favorite questions. It's the travel back in time question. So we don't have a time machine as far as I know, and no one can travel back in time at this point. I mean, if we get into the movie segment, and I've said this so many different times because again, I'm a movie nerd, but if we're not Doc Brown, we don't have a DeLorean. So when it comes down to it, if you could go back in time, Jeff, in any time frame, any age range of your life, and give your younger self a piece of advice or two, what would you say to your younger self? And I'll put the disclaimer in there. It's not to go back and change anything that you've been through, because the positive and the negative have made you the man you are today. But if you could speak to yourself anytime for any age range, what would you say to young Jeff?
Yeah. I'd go back to probably me at age 20.
Okay.
Um, at at age 20, I had just finished film school,
Hmm.
and I got hired by the Attorney General's office to kind of travel all across BC and speak in schools. They were
Hmm.
sort of hiring performers, And it was specifically, it was a youth employment program that they wanted to get people with acting skills to just go and talk. And it was one of the most enjoyable times in my life I've ever had. We do, it was a 2-hour presentation that we do twice a day, once in the morning, once in the afternoon. And there were 3 of us, and we just traveled across the province and got to see everybody. I did the talk in a youth detention center. I did it all over the place. It was really one of the most rewarding experiences of my life. Wow. And when I finished it, I did it for 2 years, and then I thought it was just put away. And about a year ago, not last February, but the February before, was the first time I got invited to speak about real estate. I spoke at the REMAX convention in Vegas.
Oh, wonderful.
And it was like everything that my 20-year-old self loved about speaking and presenting, I remembered. And if I could go back in time and talk to myself then, I would just gently remind myself, like, you don't have to put it away. This is something that you love and can be a part of your life no matter what area your life ends up going into. I think a lot of times we sort of segment our life off into these little boxes, but the reality is, the skills from everything previously we've done, they play in. And the more we can bring that stuff, especially real estate, like everybody had a career before real estate.
Sure.
And I guarantee you there are skills from that career that you can be applying to your business. And for me, it took me too long to figure that stuff out.
Okay.
So that's the advice I would give my younger self is, keep that stuff with you.
Geoff, I mean, when you said what you just said, it gave me goosebumps for a second, because you don't have to put it away. When you said those words, it just hit me like a ton of bricks. And hopefully everybody heard that loud and clear. Is we can't go back in time and change that, right? You can't advise yourself. We can't do that, but we can affect today and our future by thinking about these things. And anybody in any time frame in their life, you don't have to put it away. If there's something you're passionate about that lights a fire, lights your soul, however it ends up being, you can work a way into continually doing that and not have to feel like, oh, well, I'm past this point, so let's just put that on a shelf and leave that as a memory. I think that's beautiful advice. And again, not just for young Geoff, but everybody who's watching and listening, myself included. That is huge stuff for takeaway. And I love that you said that. I really do. This is wonderful, wonderful stuff, Geoff. So let's go into the next portion. We got 2 left and we're almost done. This is actually the secondary question that everybody really, really just enjoys, because they want to learn the way the Titans learn. So it comes down to books you're reading or have read, that really inspire you, that you enjoy, podcasts that you're listening to, influencers or coaches, anything along those lines, conferences you attend, mastermind meetings. I mean, Geoff, how are you feeding your mind?
Yeah, I'm a pretty voracious learner. I read all the time. I do real estate coaching. I'm in Richard Robbins's program, and he's absolutely fantastic.
Love it.
I'm sure there are lots of amazing real estate coaches, but that's the one that spoke to me for whatever reason. They've been fantastic. I'm a huge fan of the Tim Ferriss show, podcast wise.
Yeah.
I get an absolute ton out of that. As far as books go, Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl had a huge impact on me. And then much more personally, Michael J. Fox wrote a book called Lucky Man. And Michael J. Fox, he grew up about 10 minutes from where I grew up.
Cool.
I used to perform at the theater that he built once he made it. And he'd kind of been a hero of mine my whole life. But Lucky Man was about how he stayed optimistic through his Parkinson's diagnosis. And when I was first diagnosed with MS, I got pretty depressed for a while, and that book really helped me come out of it. And it really changed my life and helped me sort of shift the way I see things and look at the world, because I don't get any say in what effect my disease will have on me. I
Right.
can do things that will help prevent it, but it's going to do what it's going to do. But what I do have a say on is what I do with that. And that book helped me realize that.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, when you're talking about the different layers that you've spoken about, as far as, podcasts and different time frames, and then looking at it from a personal and a business standpoint, I mean, Geoff, that's obviously the best and brightest way to grow your mind. And the fact that you're continually learning and continually, molding yourself into a being, but, having the humility and understanding that, there really are a few things that we do have control in this world. And the ones that we do, it seems like you got a pretty firm grasp on it, my friend. And again, that's just such a beautiful inspiration and an example for everybody out there who's watching or listening. I do want to touch on podcasts, because you have a show, and I would love for anybody out there in the Titan Nation who's watching or listening to this to engage with your content and see what's going on. So can you tell everybody a little about your show and how that works?
Yeah, our podcast is it's called Multiple Offers, a real estate show, and you can find it wherever you find podcasts. So we're on Apple, we're on Spotify, we're on Google. I feel like there are others, but I'm forgetting them right now.
Sure.
And it's me and two other agents, and our goal is both to be information providers for the public, but also to kind of invite people in on sort of that fly on the wall conversations. What's it like when sort of three realtors sit down for a drink and kind of just talk shop? And we found the more we do kind of the behind the scenes stuff, the better response we get from our audience. And when we decided to make the podcast, most of the people who were creating podcasts in the space we wanted to kind of compete in, it was very it was an ad. A lot of times it was information as an ad, which is great.
Sure.
But we started it with the reason it's called Multiple Offers is obviously multiple offers are a real estate term.
Sure.
But more importantly, we're three agents who all have different opinions. And we're not saying, hey, pick me, because we're not a team. Now, two of them teamed up since starting, but they are still very different opinion people. And I think we still do achieve that objective of almost more of a talk show than an advertisement.
And that's beautiful when you're talking about uplifting value and what you mentioned, being the fly on the wall in that conversation. It's priceless. And I feel that anybody who's obviously into the Real Estate Titans, learning from some of the best and brightest minds in the world, you are a part of that. So when it comes down to it, it's just you, but then two other individuals, and really pulling different information and different topics. I think it's wildly useful for it to be a pitch fest. To me, it's a big turnoff. And I think for a lot of people who are consuming content, if the added bonus is it has something to do of relevance of what you're talking about in the industry, I think it makes sense. But people know whether the intention is to provide great value or if it's just to get them to buy something. And I love the fact that you're looking at it from a fresh pair of eyes. And I can't wait to just tune in myself and learn as well, just like everybody out there. So I will have links in the comments down below so that you can subscribe, tune in. And how often are you guys putting content out there on average?
We're every week we put out a podcast. It's been a little less reliable. And I will say, the quality of the show is a little lower right now. We're all recording out of our houses. Normally we have a studio that we record things. My wife's career before we were in this was in, she was a producer for TSN Sports Radio out here. Cool. And so she was very critical at the beginning of like, no, you're doing this wrong. This is how this has to go. And, you can't really argue with her. She had the #1 radio show in Vancouver. So you couldn't be like, no, I think what we're doing is right. We'd be like, okay, we'll change this stuff. But right now, like we don't have our beautiful studio. We don't have our amazing microphones. It's a little less polished than I'd like right now, but we are still putting out weekly content.
I love that. And that mentality is the show must go on. And
Yeah.
I think that it's for the greater good. And your audience understands that. You know, it's a time frame, but we will go back to normal and
Yeah.
we'll get the full-fledged content because it all comes together. But Geoff, this has been just an absolute pleasure and honor to have you. The takeaways, the perspective, and just the inspiration has been through the roof, just absolutely incredible. I want to wrap everything up with a final question. And this ends up being a quote or mantra that sums you up as a man, as a professional. What's that look like for you?
Oh, I do have a quote that I live
Oh,
by, and it's Latin, and it happens to be the McLennan clan creed. And
hmm.
I'm probably going to butcher how it's said in Latin, but it's Dum Spiro Spero, which means while I breathe, I hope.
Wow. Hmm. I think that's beautiful. And again, it's a continual message into just the wonderful time that we've had with you today, Geoff. And I think that it speaks volumes about who you are as a man and your character. And it's all very in line, but it seems like it being a family mantra or quote, I think is fantastic into that in and of itself. So you are an official real estate titan, my friend. So I just want to thank you. You're dubbed, so that's an official thing there. So, but Geoff, it's an honor and a pleasure to have you, and it was really really great time. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. It was great being on.
Awesome. Well, hey, and everybody out there as well, thank you, as always, for your time and attention, your love and support. I do need to give our sponsor a quick shout out, Lionbolt Media. If you're looking to grow and scale your business with the digital aspect to the highest level, please visit lionboltmedia.com. We are live here at Real Estate Titans every Tuesday and Friday afternoon, a different Titan, a different location. We'll catch everybody on the next live episode of Real Estate Titans. Take care. Thanks, Geoff.
Thank you.